three disturbing true neighbor horror stories by none other than geez, Mr. Nightmare. Now, I know I'm wearing a sweatshirt and I have my hood up. I'm not gonna lie. I just woke up. Like, I literally just woke up and I saw that he had a new video, so I was like, hey, let's react to it. So it's also extremely cold in my room too, so that's why I have the hoodie on, and my hair is a little fucked up right now. So, all right, let's just get into the video. Let's get it. Let's get it. Father of twins. That's who it's by.
My two kids, Sam and Robbie, are twins. They're 6 years old. A year ago, we were living at our old house, but something happened that led to us moving. It's a long, awful story. I lived in my old house for 4 years. My wife Carol and I got married while I was living there, and we had our kids there too. The neighborhood was slowly changing, and not for the better, but even still, we originally planned on staying in that house for the foreseeable future, until this happened. We were a corner house, and the house behind us on the intersecting road was covered by a bunch of tall trees and bushes, so we hardly ever saw those neighbors. Our neighbor on the right, however, his name was Steve. He had just moved there less than a year ago at the time.
It's always a Steve.
I had only ever spoken with him a couple of times. Both times I could hardly understand what he said because of his heavy accent, and he just overall didn't seem like the friendliest guy. Two of his windows overlooked our backyard. There wasn't much privacy, but whatever rooms the two windows were that overlooked the backyard, I had never seen the lights on in either of them, so I always assumed it was an unused guest room or something of that nature. One day in the summertime, Sam and Robbie were playing in the backyard in their blow-up pool and with their water guns while I was outside doing yard work. There came a certain point where I was walking towards the detached garage, and then I saw Steve next door at his window for a second. Only half a second after noticing him did he turn and walk away from the window. It was slightly odd for sure, but I left it alone. Later that day, as the sun was going down, the kids went back outside to play again. It was a very hot day, so they went back in their blow-up pool while Carol and I were in the kitchen as she was making dinner. Then the kids' laughter went quiet for a while, and suddenly Robbie came inside and said there was a flashing light from the neighbor's window. I had to follow him to the backyard to ask him to show me what he was talking about.
That was a flash from the camera. And of course, it's always someone named Steve who's weird and creepy. I don't know why. There's always a Steve. Like, it's like, I feel like that stuff like this happens, right? If they don't know the name, they'll just call him a Steve. I don't know. Steve is just, I don't know.
About. He pointed to one of Steve's upstairs windows that overlooked the backyard, and he said there was a white light that kept coming from that window. I right away assumed the worst, and asked the twins if it looked like a camera flash. They both said yes.
Knew it.
I told them it's time to dry off and come inside. So I helped them dry themselves, and then brought them in, where I went to tell Carol about this. She right away assumed the worst just like me. She said I should go next door and knock on Steve's door. So I did. But when I did, he never answered the door. His car was even in the driveway, so he had to be home. After a few attempts at knocking and ringing the bell, I gave up and went back to my house. I told Carol he wasn't opening up, which made what the kids said seem even more credible. While we couldn't prove that the white light the kids were seeing was a camera flash, it sure did sound like it, and it was concerning to hear. Some time passed, maybe even weeks, before one night when Carol and I were in the bedroom, we heard our side gate being quietly opened and closed outside. Carol wanted me to go check outside, so I stepped out into the backyard and looked around. I had on all the lights as I searched. I found nothing and nobody, but I noticed the lights in Steve's backyard were on. I went over to look over the fence into his yard, and I nearly jumped out of my skin when he came up to the fence from the other side and asked if I needed something. I asked him if he'd seen or heard anyone sneaking through our yard. He said no.
Of course
I took this time to also ask him bluntly if he had by chance been watching my kids, as they thought someone was at his window taking pictures of them playing in the pool. His reaction to this was a bit suspicious. He acted overly offended to my asking this, almost yelling at me for such an accusation. Again, without proof.
Okay, two things that make this hella sus already. First of all, it's early in the morning, I believe, or late at night, and not only are you just outside by yourself, lights on and everything. Not only are you just chilling outside, but the gate opened. And I don't know, obviously, this is what the fence actually looks like, obviously, because, I don't know. But if it, because I know that he uses like different pictures just to kind of like give you a picture, imagination of what's happening. But it's like, it's just creepy to me for that reason. And then on top of that, he also was yelling at him for, it is, like something big to accuse someone of, but it's like, I don't know, that just makes it a little bit more sus.
I couldn't, nor did I want to, start issues with a neighbor. I apologized and went back inside. Carol was not happy about this, saying he's full of shit. The next incident didn't happen until another few weeks later. This time it was in the middle of the night when we were asleep. I woke up to Carol shaking me in a panic. I looked around the room confused at first, but then when I heard the kids screaming from their room, I exploded from the bed and ran downstairs to the kids' room. Robbie was awake and crying, and I found out a few seconds later that his crying and screaming had awoken Sammy, who was crying and screaming in reaction to him. Robbie said there was someone outside the window a second ago, and there was a camera flash from the window. I got goosebumps, but I also felt my blood begin to boil. All I could say was, what did he look like? He said he didn't see. I brought the kids up to our room to sleep in the bed with us. With the lights off, I peeked out our bedroom window to look across at Steve's unlit house next door. I looked at each window of his house, and I found him. He, just like me, was peeking out one of the upstairs windows, in that same room that overlooks the backyard. I stormed outside next door and rang his doorbell like 15 times. He never opened his door.
Yeah,
I
no,
did call
he's
the
guilty.
police just to make a report on Steve. That way, if any future reports were made about him from other people, maybe the police department would look into him. I never saw him again. Sometimes I'd sit out front waiting to see him outside, but he'd clearly avoid coming outside when I'd be out there. Because of this, we ended up moving within a month to a new house in a different but nearby town, which has proven to be a better place to raise the kids anyway.
Disgusting and creepy.
About 3 months ago, I moved into an apartment with 2 other women so I could attend college. There's a list of things that make the building we live in not that great. For example, most apartment rooms face the corridor, where people from the same floor as you will constantly walk left and right to get in or out of the building. So if you keep your windows open, anyone pacing outside can see into your room. But considering I spend most of my time at college, and the girls I live with and most of the neighbors are really nice, the things on that list don't really bother me that much. A few nights ago, while getting ready to go to bed, I could hear music playing from somewhere, mostly pop songs from the 2000s. Since we live in a student-friendly city full of frat houses and the likes, I thought nothing of it. There were probably a bunch of parties going on and the sound was coming from one of them, or maybe it was just some drunk friends listening to it on the street. I got into bed and let a random video play on my phone so I could fall asleep, as I often do. But as I was starting to doze off...
You see, like, I do the same thing, not on my phone, but on my TV, because it's like, I literally cannot go to sleep without a TV on. Like, I just can't. Like, I literally cannot go to sleep without something on to listen to. And it has to be like a YouTube video. It can't be music, nothing like that. And I'm not gonna lie, it's like my ex hated the fact that the TV was on. So it's like, it's not that I'm afraid of the dark. It's not that at all, because I can sleep in the dark. It's just like I have to have some type of noise to go to sleep. And it's like, I don't know, because like music never worked for me. I tried music, never worked. And then I just put on like a YouTube video and it'll put me to sleep right there and then, like just legit right there and then. But it's like the TV would be so bright that it's like, I don't know. But yeah, no, like, but comment down below. It's like, comment down below. Do you guys need something to go to sleep, or can you guys just knock out with like no noise at all? Because I can't.
I started to hear drilling noises. At first, I thought I was just sleepy and hearing things, or maybe it was coming from my phone, but I paused the video and listened closely. There was definitely someone using a drill somewhere nearby. I got up and walked around the apartment feeling confused.
That late? That was kind of crazy.
It was around 11 p.m., so there was no way that someone could be working still. The sound was louder at my bedroom window, so I opened it to check, and quickly realized that it was coming from the neighboring apartment, the one that's closest to my window. At that moment, I realized that music was also coming from there. No one lives in that specific apartment, so my confusion only grew. But then I figured maybe someone had planned to rent it, talked it over with the landlord, and he ordered for something in it to be fixed. Still, the fact that they were doing it so late into a Thursday felt really strange. I went back to trying to sleep, but they wouldn't stop making noise. I was texting a friend and eventually started complaining about it, sending him audios and even a video directed at the window that all the noise was coming from. He said I should call the police because there was no way it was legal for someone to be doing this, especially in a building full of apartments. I decided against it since I just wanted to get some rest.
Makes sense.
And it was already past midnight by then.
Oh yeah.
I forced myself to sleep through the drilling sounds, but a little past 1 in the morning, I woke up again, this time to hammering. Feeling stressed, but not enough to take action just yet, I tried to sleep once more, only to wake up again. This time, I didn't even check what time it was. I was totally fed up. So I just put on a robe and made my way to confront whoever it was. The window to the apartment was open, so I decided to talk to those people from there. The window was located above the stairs though, so I would have to go down a few steps to get into view, and I'd look even shorter being seen from there. But that was the last thing on my mind. As soon as I got to the window, I felt most of the courage leave me. In that room, there were 4 men who all seemed to be around their 30s or 40s.
Yeah, no.
And they all stopped whatever they were doing to look at me. Now, only the song coming from the radio could be heard, and somehow it felt chilling to have all those other noises stop so abruptly, because even though that's everything I wanted just seconds earlier, I definitely didn't want to be the one thing these 4 men were focused on. Another thing that bothered me, but I didn't think about until the next day, was those men's peculiar choice of music. It just felt creepy to realize that middle-aged men were listening to stuff that teenagers or even preteens would be listening to. Anyway, none of them looked shocked to see me. They just had puzzled, "What's that?" looks. Remembering why I was there in the first place, I said, "Excuse me, it's pretty late and most people here have work early in the morning. If it's not too much to ask, can you guys do this some other time?" Now, mind you, I'm a pretty short and puny 19-year-old who didn't even think to put on something other than a robe. So when 2 of those 40-something-year-old men came to the window and towered over me, looking up and down at my body, almost like predators, I froze up and felt the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. They were both sweaty and had their mouths agape, and one of them had a hammer that looked quite heavy in his hand. They started smiling in a sick, twisted way, and I felt a sudden urge to throw up. Extremely unsettled, I started slowly making my way back to my apartment, not taking my eyes off the men, feeling like they might try to grab me when I got to the last step of the stairs and close enough to the window. As soon as I was out of their view, I dashed to my front door, got inside, and locked it.
What's wrong with the screen?
One of the girls who lives with me was out of town that night, and I presumed the other one was asleep, since she hadn't seen my text on our group chat asking them if anyone had moved into that apartment. I got back into my room and didn't hear any tools again. In reality, even the radio seemed to have been turned off. I wasn't really sure how to feel about that because now I wasn't angry, just disgusted and creeped out. I know I should have called the cops.
See, now me personally, like if I was this female in this story, like obviously I can't speak for you females, but if I was a female in a situation, I would have called the cops. I'm not gonna lie, because like, you know, of all the stories I hear and stuff like that, I would have called the cops immediately. And yeah, no, that's just me though. But you see, but like I can sleep through some stuff. Like I remember this happened like a few months ago. So I was sleeping, right, and like our alarm in my apartment went off, and I slept through the entire thing, like literally the entire thing. Like it was going off. And to remind you, like, at that time, like, where I was sleeping at, the alarm was literally right above my head. It's, like, right above my head. And so it was just going off. It was extremely loud. And then even my brother, he was waking me, he was like, "Hey, Gabe, wake up." And I was knocked the entire time. And then, it's funny, out of all that noise and him shaking me up, yelling in my ear to wake up, I didn't wake up until my phone alarm went off. When I woke up, I was like, "What's good, yo?" And then my brother looked at me. He was like, "Bro, how the fuck did you sleep through that? I was like, through what? He was like, bro, the alarm. I'm just like, what alarm? And then he told me about it. I was just like, yeah, that's crazy that I slept through like a fire alarm because I'm a tough sleeper. I don't know, that's just me though.
Cops by then, but I was just too stressed to deal with that any longer. Checking the time, it was about 2:15 now. I got into bed again, tricking myself into thinking I wasn't scared, just craving some sleep. Eventually, I passed out. I woke up in the middle of the night again. This time it was around 3:30, and I could hear no sounds coming from the apartment. Everything was quiet, and that quickly started to bother me. It was too quiet. I had to have heard or felt something in order to wake up. The silence was making me uneasy, and I had a feeling that someone might have been on the other side of my closed window. I tried not to think about it, but I couldn't get a peaceful sleep after that. The next morning, as I was going out, I went past the same window and noticed that it was closed. It was as if this previous night had never even happened. But I asked the girl who was home with me if she heard anything. She said she had woken up several times during the night, but couldn't get up and do something about it due to sleep paralysis. Either way, that confirmed I wasn't delusional. Those people really were there. But then, how did they have the keys to the building and that apartment? Why did it seem like they didn't want to be seen during the day? What were they thinking of doing to me or maybe any passerby? It's been a week now, and thankfully I haven't seen those men again. Still, I have no idea who they were or what they were doing, and I'm honestly scared to even think about the possibility that they might come back, or still be lurking around somewhere.
I'd be terrified too. Especially how she said that she wasn't tall, also. I don't know.
I live in a pretty basic suburban town on Long Island, New York. My girlfriend Sarah and I recently started renting a small house perfect for 2 to 4. We have a decent sized backyard, and our house is on a very quiet street. One side of our house has a water drainage basin, as the county calls it, which is just a bunch of trees surrounding a sump. On the other side is our neighbor Kyle, who lives with his wife. They're a bit older in their 60s and quiet. Then directly across the street is a little patch of woods that's in front of another water drainage basin. So for people who like privacy out front, our house is perfect. But then there's the backyard. Kyle's house is blocked off by some bushes that the landlord planted years ago. So besides the house directly behind us over the fence, there's no other houses that could see into the yard. However, that one house looking into our backyard was all that it's taken to genuinely make Sarah and I uncomfortable. As I'm writing this, it's currently the fall, so we've been doing fall cleanup the past few weeks in the front and backyard. I started noticing any time we were out there were these 2 people standing at the upstairs window of the house behind us. It was a middle-aged man and woman. When I'd look up to that window, they'd keep looking and watching me. It got really uncomfortable to the point we'd pretend not to notice it, but we could only stomach doing this for so long. The leaves kept falling day by day, and the fall cleaning would need to continue. Sarah wouldn't want to be in the yard anymore because she was getting so creeped out at those 2 people who would watch us out the window without fail. So one foggy day while raking, I looked up at the window, and once again, the 2 were standing at the big rectangular window. I decided to wave at them, see if they'd wave back. After a few seconds of smiling and waving, they didn't move. No reaction. But I could feel their stares, and I could see their eyeballs looking at me. I turned away from the window and tried to continue raking, but after sneaking a peek back at the window a couple minutes later and seeing them still there, I felt too awkward and weird being out there. I went inside. Sarah said we should go over and introduce ourselves. At first, I was hesitant of that, but I was persuaded to walk around the block with her to that house and ring the bell. We expected one of those people at the window to answer the door, but instead, the door cracked open, just enough to see half of a person's head. It didn't look like either of those people who were always at the window. It was also super dark in the house, to the point that it looked incredibly ominous and uncanny staring at half of that person's face. This guy looked a lot younger, like in his 20s. Sarah and I tried to be friendly and introduce ourselves. The guy seemed very closed off though, and not interested in speaking. He had a very "what do you need" type of attitude about him, and when I asked if he lives with anyone else here like his parents, he said no. I mentioned the man and woman who were always at the window upstairs, and the guy on the other side of the door said he doesn't know who I'm talking about. Sarah and I felt really unsettled, so we just left. But weirdly, as we walked down the walkway back to the sidewalk, I noticed the guy behind the door was still peering half of his face through the cracked open door. I'm sure he watched us walk away until we were
That's
out of
creepy.
sight. That interaction was weirder and creepier than we were expecting. When we got back home, I went upstairs to our room. The upstairs of our house is only our master bedroom and the bathroom. It has 2 windows. One of the windows looks over to that house over the fence, and I looked out the window to see those 2 people looking out the window again. And even at this distance, I felt like they were staring right at me.
Nope, out
I
of
shut
there.
the blinds and went down to tell Sarah. We agreed it was time to plant some arborvitaes to block their window from view. The only problem is it's already the fall and it's too late to plant any kinds of trees. We have to make it through winter. After a few days of not looking outside the bedroom window or going into the backyard, one night we heard a strange knocking sound from downstairs. I told Sarah to wait in bed while I went downstairs. The knocking got louder, and I quickly discovered it wasn't the sound of knocking on one of the doors, but rather on the glass of one of the backyard
Oh
windows.
no, that's creepy.
The blinds of it were of course shut because we didn't want those creepy people looking into our living room at night. I approached it, and yes, it was 100% a fist knocking on the glass. I considered saying, "Who's there?" but I froze and I was too scared. Instead, I flicked on the backyard light, and then the knocking stopped. I didn't even want to look out the window or door. I kept the light on, and then went back upstairs to my room, where I told Sarah about the creepy knocking, but I claimed that I chased whoever it was away. I exaggerated in fear of sounding like a coward. I also didn't want her to worry. We both imagined it to have been something to do with that house, though. Nothing has happened since, but I'll have to update throughout the winter. Update. It's been 2 weeks, and we haven't seen those people at the window ever since. But last night, we heard yelling and screaming from that house. I had to open our window, and it became clear there were muffled yells coming from that house. The fact that we heard it through 2 sets of closed windows just goes to show how loud the yelling was. Then, out of nowhere, it just stopped and went quiet. We almost called the police, but ultimately didn't. I'll update again if anything else happens, but we're really getting creeped out here now.
It makes sense. I mean, I get creeped out too if that was happening to me, honestly. Now, here, look, alright? We're gonna do something new. Alright, I'm backing up because I gotta, you know what? I'm gonna zoom in real quick, alright? I'm not gonna zoom in all the way, but it's a little awkward because it's like, it's weird because it's like my camera, like, it won't, like, anyways. So, a little story time since we're here. So, I will say a story about, so, alright, it's not creepy or nothing like that, but it's like a little like story about my neighbor. So this was about last year. No, yeah, it was about like last year, earlier this year actually. Yeah, no, it was January this year. So at this time, me and my ex were still together, right? So we lived in like this townhouse, right? But they were like connected, so it's kind of like apartments. So it's like they're connected townhouses, right? So our room was right here, and then the neighbor was like right here. So it's like basically like the walls basically touching because it's like, you know, it's all together, right? So the walls are not that thick. So the walls are pretty thin. So what happened was is that this neighbor, right? They kept making noises all night. They kept banging on the wall, and so we confronted them. I was like, "Hey, what's going on here? Why are you making so much noise?" Right? So it was a mother and a daughter who was living there. And so, but apparently the mother was complaining to us that we're making too much noise. And I'm just like, no, that's not true at all. Because apparently whoever lives on the other side of this wall, I don't know if it's you or your daughter, but one of you guys are making way too much noise at nighttime, and you guys keep banging on the wall even though we're not doing nothing. Because our TV, like, it wasn't even on that side of the wall. It was like blocking the window. So the sound coming from it wasn't even projecting on their wall. And so we later found out that the daughter was making all the noise. And I'm just like I said, I know it's not like, you know, a disturbing horror story of neighbor, but it's just like a quick neighbor story I wanted to tell you guys because I just found it extremely annoying that this person was doing this. And so eventually the noise stopped after we was like, hey, you guys are making all the noise, so what's going on? But like ever since then, it's like the daughter would just keep making more noise, and then it's like when I'm outside, like chilling in my car or just fixing my car or doing something with the car, and I see her, and like she'll walk out sometimes and she'll give me a dirty look, and I'm just like, the fuck are you giving me a dirty look for? You're the one that's up there with your boyfriend doing. I'm not gonna say it because he's YouTube, but I can hear. I don't want to hear any of that. So it's like I don't know. It's really annoying, and I swear, me and that person were just beefing, but like obviously like it's like the eye contact was beefing the entire time. I'm just like, I don't like. I hate that you're making all this noise, and they didn't get in trouble for it. So it's like that made it more annoying for me. But anyways, sorry for a little rant and a little story, but that will do it for this video. I know I said I wasn't gonna upload for the remaining of December, but I was like, yo, I can't do that to you guys. I really can't. So I just decided to make this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If so, leave a like, comment down below, talk to me, say what's up. I'm friendly. But yeah, alright guys, see you guys in the next one because your boy is out. Peace.